Hey folks, welcome to the
Hello, hi everybody.
second event of the day with Hacktoberfest with Aviyel. Today we have Amit Savyasachi. He's a solutions engineering manager at Testsigma, and he'll be sharing insights about his journey at Testsigma and what they're building at Testsigma and overall what's brewing over there. We're all waiting to listen to that.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Isak, for having me here. I think I'm really glad to be a part of this community and sharing my thoughts, and I look forward to share all the thoughts what's brewing in Test Sigma.
Thanks, Amit. You can take over the stage now.
All right. So I'll be talking about one of the open source platform that you have. We call it Test Sigma. So before we go dig deep into it, into the product, I would just like to share who we are and what we do. So Testsigma is a completely open source unified test automation platform where you can test your web application, mobile application, let it be your Android, iOS, and REST API. So the approach here would be completely scriptless, so that you do not have to write any kind of code in order to run your test cases. So I would like to share more insight on where we are and when we are founded. So we are actually founded in 2019, and we are backed by Axel and Stripe. So the main purpose of building this company is to make automation accessible to all. So we have certain team members, let's say, for the quality of the product, we only ensure that the QA team work towards building the quality of the product. But at the end of the day, the quality is everybody's responsibility. And we also think that on the quality assurance side, everybody in the team can automate, and they can also contribute to making the product quality better. So far we have nearly 2.5 million tests executed in our platform, and as I speak, there could be more numbers. And we have a lot of enterprise customer, including Netgear, Freshworks, Sage, and HP. So coming back to the product, I would like to share a generic perspective on how the automation or how the testing has evolved from last couple of decades. So earlier on, if you see, we had a lot of manual testing in practices, and then we slowly converted to automation. So in automation, what we tend to do is we created custom built frameworks, and we had a lot of challenges in maintaining it. But in the modern era, and let's say if you consider it from last 5 years or so, there are a lot of tools coming out in the market. These are modern tools and mostly into scriptless automation that ensures that your delivery cycle and the process of automation is being simplified. So the problem that we are trying to actually solve is, let's say in manual testing, what you have is you have a longer testing cycle. So before you test, you need to have your application ready with you in maybe in the testing environment or maybe in the staging environment. So until and unless you have that complete access to the application, you will not be able to automate or maybe write certain manual test cases. So the problem with manual testing so far in the last couple of decades is it has a longer testing cycle, slow time to execute, or maybe slow time to create those test cases, and those are really error prone. And we cannot rely on those scripts every time. There are larger chances of getting your automation compromised. So then the era of custom build framework came into the picture, which was indeed a really good approach, but there were also a few challenges into it. The first one, let's say, in order to build a custom solution or maybe a custom framework, you spend a lot of time as well as resources, and the development cycle are still slow. You have to write a lot of codes, and you have to maintain it, and you have to have a complete dedicated QA people who are technically sound in order to maintain those test script that you have prepared. And it takes year to actually, if you follow the waterfall model or the previous software development cycle that you have, the in order to return the ROI, it took years. Let's say you cannot just develop an application and get the ROI immediately. So the process was still slower in custom built framework as well. So now is, let's say, in the last 5 years or so, there are a lot of tools, as I mentioned, that came into the picture, and most of them are into scriptless automation. So the only reason why these tools are getting popular, because they are easy to maintain. You do not need any particular framework or any particular setup you want to do. You do not need it in this kind of tool, and you can do a lot of customization and you get all the thing at one place. And you do not, the best part of it is you do not need any kind of technical knowledge in order to create test cases or maybe maintain them. So this tool has recently coming into the picture, and they're doing really well. So having said that, I would like to dig deep into Testsigma and what problem are we actually solving. So we the main goal or the agenda of having this is to understand where we are coming from and what value we bring to the table. So we always think that testing is a team sport. We do not believe that testing can only be done to, testing responsibility is only for the QA people. So we are trying to change that particular narrative. We want to make this particular test automation for everybody in the team. So we strongly believe that testing is a team sport, and everybody should contribute to build a better tool and build a better quality tool. So since I mentioned, we have a unified approach. So in Testsigma, we have a complete end-to-end ecosystem, in which you can automate your web, mobile, and API at one place. So the problem with the earlier framework or custom built framework is in order to automate certain things, let's say you have a mobile app to automate and you have a web application to automate. So for automating all these kind of application, you rely on multiple tools. Let it be conventional tool like Selenium, APM, Cypress, etc. So you have to run after multiple tools, and the resource cost would also count in. But how we are different over here is we have a unified approach. You do not need to have multiple tools over here in order to automate this application. And just a second. Oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't share my screen. Can you see it now? All right. Thanks for that. Okay. So the problem that you're trying to solve over here, as I mentioned, that we want to make this testing game for everybody. We are a completely unified ecosystem where you can automate your web, mobile, and APIs all together. And the major or the crucial part of any automation tool is how you integrate your tool with other tools. Let's say for testing, you cannot simply go ahead and write automation script and sit there. You have to also get the report. You have to have a particular infrastructure where you want to run it. And also you need to scale. So when I talk about scaling, you have to have integration with bug reporting tool. You need to have integration with test management, and so on. So what we provide over here is we provide limitless extensibility with all the platform. Let it be building a CI/CD pipeline or integrating this with any kind of bug reporting tool. So I would also like to talk on the same page where I mentioned about we do not have to be really dependent on other tools in order to create an automation framework. So in the older test stack that you have, we majorly rely on these 6 infrastructure. The first one, you need to have a good programming language. On top of that, you will write, you need to be dependent on certain automation tool like Selenium or APM. And then on top of that, you have to build certain framework. And once the framework is built, you need to make sure that these things integrate properly with your test management, or maybe if you are going for cloud option, you need to make sure that you integrate this with testing infrastructure like BrowserStack or SourceLab. And the last part is your reporting. So if you see this particular stack, you see a lot of tool getting involved. So what we present is we present you a one-stop solution for all these things. You do not need to have a lot of tool in your stack in order to automate and give you and for having a proper ROI. So so you can actually create, you can run, you can debug, you can report, and you can integrate with Testsigma. So these are, while I dig deep into the product and give you a small demo of the product on how it works, so I'd just like to highlight few of the advantages that you would see in Testsigma. First one is it is completely scriptless automation. You do not have to write any piece of code in order to write your automation script. So the maintenance, so it has been seen that creating test cases are easy, but when you try to run the same code for a year or a couple of years, then you would see a lot of issues coming in. So the maintenance is something that need a lot of effort and it needs a lot of resources. So we have a built-in AI powered maintenance system which takes care of your locators and the element that you have captured. And let's say there is a deployment tomorrow and there has been a lot of changes inside your application. So this AI engine, what it does, it will make sure, or it will check whether your application has changed something or not, and based on that, it will automatically change the script. So, and also you can actually, let's say, whenever you are doing on-premise installation, so you need to have a lot of settings and you need to also rely on certain tools. But if you want to scale it, then you can go for the cloud automation and you do not have to have anything on premise. And the best part of it is it can be completely customizable and it is completely free. So so we have the open source version where you do not have to spend anything on the resources or maybe in the platform. So you can easily jump into the open source platform and start automating your test cases from day one. Okay. So now what I'll do is I will quickly jump into the Testsigma platform, and I would share how we can automate test cases. A simple test case, let's consider a web application. And I'll just show you how Testsigma, how in Testsigma you can go ahead and automate. So first, I would like to talk about the setup. How do you set up the Testsigma open source? It is very simple. So you need to have a Docker image. So everything, I think I'll add the details or of our GitHub page. I think it is already there. Let me just add it so that at the same time while I explain, you can also check the page. Okay. So I think Isaac has just put in the chat, you can log into the GitHub page and you can see the source code. So the setup is very simple. There are multiple ways how you can set the Testsigma server. First is the cloud deployment. It is very easy, but it is not open source, unfortunately. So, but the open source part is you can actually set it up by Docker, or maybe if you have downloadable packages, you can actually go ahead and do that. So I have done a Docker setup in my machine. So you just need to create two images, one for Testsigma server and one for MySQL server. So one is for database and one is for Testsigma server. So once this particular container is running, you can go to your browser and go to the local host and put the port number in which you have actually configured. Okay. So once you are login, or if you are if you navigate to that particular URL, you would be seeing this login page. You can completely sign up, and if you want, you can join the community from here. So once you are signed in, you would see this particular dashboard. So this particular dashboard is very self-explanatory, but I would like to just walk you through so that we are all on the same page. So this particular dashboard shows you the number of test cases that you have prepared in your systems so far. Let's say if you have prepared one, and how many of them are actually passing, how many of them are failing, and how many of them are not executed. Now, at the same time, it would show you what are the latest run that you have done from past month and past quarter. So let's say I have this bunch of test cases I have automated in last quarter. I would be able to see what is the status from the dashboard itself. And also, if you're scheduling any test cases or test plan, you'll be able to see the schedule from here. And we have a very unique review management system where you can review, let's say if you are the QA manager of your team, you can actually review those test cases which are created by your colleagues or the teammates. So the structure over here, the hierarchy structure over here is very simple. So you have to create a project. So let's say if you are starting a new project in your organization, so you need to create a separate project. The same way how you create a repository in JIT, the same way you can actually create a brand new project. So I'll just start off by creating a new project. So you can create a new project by clicking on this particular drop down over here, or maybe you can, if you want, you can create a new project from here too. So let's say if you click on the new project over here, you can add the project name. Let's say this is a sample open source project. And if you have plans to automate multiple applications, you can go ahead and do that. So you can enable this so that it will, so as I mentioned, this is a unified platform. So we have support for web application, mobile web application, Android native, iOS native, REST APIs, and a new feature that has come for the support of desktop applications. So we now stick to the web application. So let's say whatever the name of your web application you can put. Let's say this is Open Cart. And if you have multiple versions of the application, you can go ahead and enable versioning for those applications as well. So once this particular setup is done, you can click on create and a new project would be created. So all the details that I have filled in can be seen from here. This is the project name, and this is the application name, and this is the version name. Okay, so I won't waste much time. I'll just quickly jump into how easily we can create a simple test case in Testsigma. So once you have created the project, you can actually jump in and create a new test case. So let's say if you click on this new test case button, you can enter the test case name, whatever you want to create. Let's say this is Open Cart. And let's say this, let's say if you have an URL or the application that you want to test, you can put it over directly. Okay, so we have two options over here, and if you click on this advanced option, you will see a lot of test management level options. Let's say if you have a particular requirement that you want to map to this particular test case. So it's a kind of traceability matrix where you can actually have a set of requirement mapped to certain test case, just to have an overview of how many test case you have created and what are pending. Let's say if you are the QA manager and if you want to assign this particular test case to somebody, you can assign it from here. And let's say you want to customize this type of testing and the status of the particular test case, you will be easily able to add it while creating the test case. So we'll quickly jump into create test case. Let's say, so you have two options here. Either you can write the test case manually or you can record the test steps. So recording test step is very easy and it is very convenient. So let's stick to record steps. So when you click on record steps, you see that automatically a new window appears and the application that I want to automate would be popped up. So now what I want to do is I want to click on this register button. So here in the left-hand side, you would see that there is a recorder. This is a test step recorder. And the purpose of this widget is to capture all the actions that you perform on the web application, and it will automatically convert them to test steps. So here what you can see is the next action that I want to perform over here is I want to click on register button. So I'll just do the action. Let's say I'll not write any code. I'll not write any kind of test steps. I'll simply do the action over here. I'll click on register. So when I click on register, you will see that it has captured a unique identifier, or it has captured the entire test step. But if I want to change this particular locator name, I would be able to change it. Let's say if I want to type register button. So let's say whenever I'm automating, I want to make sure that we follow proper naming convention. Let's say if we are aware of page object model, so inside a particular page we have a lot of objects. So based on those object name, we will automatically capture the detail and we'll create a test steps based on that. So the next action that I want to perform is I want to enter certain data in username field. Let's say I want to enter my name in the username field. So as I add this particular detail in the field, I can see that the step 3 has been captured. Okay, so so here you do not have to do anything manually. Automatically these steps would be captured. And similarly, if I go on adding, let's say this first name is Amit, and last name I would put at G. So you'd see that automatically all the things that I am going on doing, automatically this test steps is getting captured. So I'd add an email ID, and let's say this is a drop down, right? So I'll just select an option from this particular drop down and we'll see how this widget behaves. So once I select an option, so it automatically got this particular value of that particular element that I have selected, and it auto captured that particular step. Similarly, if I want to enter certain data in password, I can go ahead and enter that. So having said that, there could be a question that these are the very functional test step that I'm doing, but what if I want to do certain assertion or any kind of complex scenarios? So you have an option to add certain test step as well. So we call it as NLP step. So NLP stands for natural language processing. So let's say you want to validate if certain data or maybe a certain text area is present or not. So I can simply click on it and I can add a test step like verify. So when I do that, I can see that there are a lot of NLP that can do assertion. So based on my requirement, I can choose which one to use. Let's say I want to validate if the current page URL is test data. So test data here is nothing but the input that you want to validate. So I'll just remove and I'll just copy this particular URL and paste it over here so that it validates if the current page URL is this. Okay, and once I have done it, I can click on create. So at the same time, you can add a lot of conditional step, or maybe if you want to add a step group, or maybe a particular step block or for loop, you would be able to add. So once I'm done with the recording, I can click on done over here. Okay, and I would see that all the test steps that I have created just now is being converted, or all the action that I have just performed in that web page is now automatically getting converted to the test step. All right. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and run this test case and see how it works. So if you just notice over here, the amount of time that I took to create a particular test step of nearly 9 steps is very minimal. Okay, it takes me a second to build all these particular test steps. So now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and run this particular test case and see how it behaves. So when you click on, when you want to run this particular test case, you can simply click on this run button. So when you click on run button, there is an ad hoc run page coming in. So there are a lot of options where you can select in which infrastructure you want to run this particular test case. So we have our own lab in which you can actually run the test case, that is Testsigma lab. Or if you want to run the same test case locally on the same device that you are currently working on, you can select local device in that case. Or if you have any integration with Source Lab, BrowserStack, or Lambda Test, you can go ahead and integrate your account with Testsigma and you can run on their platform too. So let's stick to Testsigma lab for now. So here you can actually see there are a lot of OS version, you can see Windows, Mac, and Linux. So if I select Windows, and I have to select on which window version you want to run. So we have a combination of nearly 2000 plus mobile devices and browser combination on which you can actually go ahead and run the test cases. So you select this Windows 11 or maybe Windows 10 and select on which browser you want to run. At the same time, you can run it across multiple browser at the same time and see if your application is cross-browser compatible or not. So you can select this option, and you can select which version you want to, browser version you want to run. And also at the same time, you can select on which screen resolution you would like to run. So once it is done, you can actually set the page load and element load timeout. So in conventional approach, we call this as implicit and explicit waits. So you can configure them over here. And if you have multiple environment, let's say you have a QA environment or production environment, you can actually run the same test case on those environment as well. So I would quickly run this particular test case and see whether it passes or fails, or in case just a second. All right. So we would see whether it passes, fails, or in case it fails, what error, and how we can debug all our test cases. Okay, so now it is running. So you see this particular status as running. So that means a machine of this category is being assigned for your test case, and the current test case is currently running on that particular machine. So if you also want to see more details, you would be able to see a graphical representation of all those status that are currently running. So now all the things are in queue. So that's the reason you are seeing it in a bluish color. And here also you can see who has executed the test case, what type of test case was it, and if it is a data-driven test case or not. So you can get a step-level result as it is running. So you can see that the first step took nearly 5 seconds, and the second. So you can actually, as the test case is running, you can see these results in live. So you can see that all my test case has ran and all the steps has passed. So now you can also see the screenshot. So for each and every step, we capture the screenshot, and you would be able to see how your test case has performed. So on top of it, you would also be seeing a complete execution video. Okay, so here you can actually see the entire execution video and how your execution has happened on that particular VM. So it opened the application, it clicked on register, it would enter username, it would enter first name, and it enter email, and it would be selecting certain details from the drop down as well. So this is a very basic script that we prepared, and we can see how much time does it take to build an automation script. So at the same time, if you want to debug your test case, you can actually get all the logs. You can get the console log, you can get the network log, and also you can get Selenium log. Okay, so this is a very basic implementation of how you can create a simple test case and you can run it. The same implementation we have for Android and iOS as well. You can run and you can capture all these test steps of for an Android or an iOS app. So adding more details to it, let's say this is a small block of test case that we created. But what if you have a lot of data and you want to perform a data-driven testing? So I would not go deep into the data-driven part, but I would just like to show you how this particular data-driven testing works in Testsigma. So we have a concept of test data profile in Testsigma, where let's say if you want to, if you have data inside Excel or any spreadsheet, so you can import all these data to Testsigma. Let's say you have a set of 1,000 plus data, and you want to run a data-driven test case on these data. So you can directly import on whatever file you have from your local machine, and you can convert them into test data profile. Or else, if you want to create certain new data from here, you can go ahead and create test data profile. And let's say this is a sample data that I would be creating data, and let's say this is the username. Okay, let's say this is my set one, and this is the username which I want to parameterize. So in this application, for example, I want to test my application with 1,000 set of data, and I have 1,000 set of username, first name, and last name. So let's say I want to do a lot of positive and negative testing over here. So in that case, what you can do is you can create a lot of data around it. Let's say this is the username, and this is the first name. So here, let's say the username is ABC, and the first name is, let's say, XYZ. And I would create one more set. This is set 2, where I can add the username as test and first name as test 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I have this particular data with me now. So what I would do is I would take up this data and run the same test case in a data-driven mode. The same test case that we prepared, we would just run the same test case in data-driven mode. So how I can do it is very simple. I just have to, if you want to map certain data to your test case, what you can do is you can click on this edit. And if you have a particular test data profile, you can select the test data profile. And if you want to enable this data-driven mode, so this particular toggle, what it does is it will make sure that all these sets that you have created. So now you saw that I created only 2 sets, but what if you have 100 set of data? So in those 100 set of data, you could actually go ahead and run across, run through all the 100 set of data if you enable data-driven. So I would like to run those 2 sets that I have created. So you can select the iteration from where you want to start and where you want to end. Okay, so once you do that, you can click on update. So if you notice now, so you would see that what I will do is I have hard-coded this particular value over here. Okay, so you can actually click on edit, but I want to parameterize this particular data. So the parameterization is very simple and straightforward over here. So the first step, what I did was I mapped the test data profile that I have created to the test case. Okay, once we have done that, I can select this parameter option. And there are a lot of options in which you can add the input to your test cases. Let it be, if you want to hard code, you can go for plain text, or if you want to take this data from the Excel sheet, then you can go for parameter, or you have a certain data that you have inside test case and you want to move the data from step number 1 to step number 3, then you can go for runtime. And similarly, we have data generators. Data generator, that what it will do is it will create random string or random alphanumeric values that you can use it for your testing. So every time your test case run, it will try to test the same field with new set of data. So which I will be also incorporating in the subsequent test step. So let's say when I select parameter, I could see only these 2 parameter name, because these 2 parameter name is what I have assigned in the test data profile. So I can select this username and click on update. And similarly, in the first name field as well, I have hard coded it. So I would like to take the data from Excel sheet or the test data profile that I have created. So I click on it and click on first name. And in the last name field, what I would do is I would generate a random string. So here what I can do is I can pick up the data generator. So we have n number of data generator. Let's say if you want a random email every time, or maybe if you want a random number, or maybe a random first name, last name, you can use it. So what I'll do is I'll select this name and click on update. And let's say here also, if you want to generate a random email, you can go ahead and do that. Let's say I would generate email function. Let's say you can specify the length of which you want to add. Click on save, click on enter. So what I do is I'll run the same test case again. So if you want to run the same test case on the same configuration, you can click on dry run and click on rerun. So once you click on rerun, the test case would run on the same configuration that you have selected before. So as this particular test case is running, I would just like to pause and see if anybody has any questions. Yeah. Yeah, please. Yes, we do have. So when it comes to, let's say, if you want to if you have a larger automation scheme of thing, what you can do is, let's say, in all the automation, it is very important to build a scalable framework. So if you can, you can take the code from the Git repository, or you can register and use the Docker, and or or you have this multiple ways of setting this particular Testsigma server. So what you can do is you can actually take it and you can start building the test case from scratch. So once you do that, by the time you reach a scalable approach, let's say you have a larger code base and you want to test everything. So it actually depends on the author who is actually creating those test cases. So since I already mentioned that Testsigma is capable of integrating with any kind of CI/CD pipeline as well. Let's say when you consider about continuous integration and continuous deployment process, it is very important to build a scalable automation and which is reliable too. So you can actually start designing the test cases in such a way that the base level, let's say when it comes to the XPath, creating of XPath or something. So here what we have is we have this automated mechanism of generating the XPath. So in while generating the XPath, so these kind of XPath or maybe IDs or multiple locator are the basic code blocks of any kind of automation framework. If your XPath is not reliable, all your test cases would break. So this Testsigma recorder will actually help you getting those reliable XPath and building the reliable test steps. So along with that, if you want to use this particular tool for your CI/CD pipeline, or maybe any kind of integration, let it be your bug reporting tool, or maybe your test management tool, you'd be able to integrate and scale your automation.
Thanks for answering that. We have another question coming up. So Testsigma has proven to be good with enterprise scale code bases. How feasible is it to use Testsigma for small scale side projects?
Yeah, we have. So as I told that we do not want to restrict any kind of team or any kind of companies to use Testsigma. So when it comes to a small scale industry or maybe a startup in that case, so in startup, what you cannot afford is you cannot invest a lot of money, and you cannot invest a lot of money on the resources as well. So what we bring to the table is you do not need to have a lot of resources in order to automate. So since it is a completely scriptless approach that we would be following, you do not need to have a specified or a highly technical team members inside the team in order to automate. So the core problem is what we are discussing. We want to make this automation for all. Let it be from the business side of the corporate, or maybe from the technical side of the corporate. So you can, anybody can come in, jump in, and they can contribute to your automation script. So since it is a completely no code solution, you saw how easily we created those particular test cases. For a small scale company or maybe a small sized company, I think this would be a perfect fit because you do not have to invest a lot of time, effort, and resources in this kind of tool.
This is a question. This is a question, like a personal question that comes up. So, you guys have been working with enterprise solutions even from the very start as a very small startup. So, how is it working with big companies and so on, building enterprise scale solutions for them?
Okay, the journey has been really challenging, and we have also learned. So initially, when we founded in nearly 2019, if you see the product back then and the product now, there is a very huge difference in the product setup that you have. So initially, when you build tools, it's not, I mean, really, to be honest, I have been part of Testsigma from very scratch when we have nearly around 10 people in the team. So now we have grown up to nearly 100 people in the team, and the quality of the product that we had back then, and we actually we are a company that takes care of customer requirement, and let's say whatever the customer requirement is, we try to reverse engineer the same thing into the product. So we are a customer centric product. Let's say whatever requirement, let's say if you consider also, let's say how the applications were built back then in nearly 2 decades older and how they are built now, there is a huge gap in the kind of technology that we are using now. So if along with the approach of how the technology were used back then is completely different now. So at the same time, we also need to take care of our testing need, and we have to come up with new solution and new R&D approach where we can actually, in order to compete with those application or the modern day application, we need to have a modern day testing approach as well. So we have, really evolved from let's say from past few years on how the features or maybe how the quality of the product were there, and now we are more into a matured solution which takes care of your modern day application. It is not that you cannot automate any kind of modern day application technology. Let's say if you talk about Flutter application, or maybe if you talk about React native applications. So these are modern frameworks that are coming into the market. And at the same time, we are also trying to reverse engineer the same thing into the product so that all the modern application and the modern technology that are coming in the market can easily be automatable in the product.
Yeah, that was great. The insights you provided were great. Like a lot of people enjoyed it. We had a very good follow follower count right now, and we'd love to get you on stage again with Aviyel.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks Shruti. Thanks Amit. I think we'll wrap up the session. So there's an announcement. There's a quick announcement to make. So Hacktoberfest week 2 submissions are being reviewed right now. The results will be published by the end of week 3, and you can start researching on projects and so on for the week 3 submissions, because you get a 2-week gap till the 28th. So submissions close on the 28th. This is what I wanted to say. So I think it's time to push off.
Yeah, I would actually like to add a few more details. I know I think it's nearly time, so I would just like to brief in on. So since we are an open source community, so we would like people to contribute to the community as well. So I think we have already. Let me share the meeting, and not the meeting. It's the link where you can actually join in the community and you can contribute. So there are multiple ways how you can contribute to the community. We have a unique feature where you can write your own code and convert that to add-ons that eventually get converted to NLP that we have used. So the best way is you can actually share your piece of code that you want to share it with the Testsigma community, and you can contribute to the community. And the major way how you can contribute to the community is by helping us build a better documentation and a better tutorial. So we have a lot of documentation that we are going on doing, and you can actually get benefited from it as well. So you can actually contribute to our documentation and also the tutorial that we go on creating. And at the same time, I would just like to wrap it up by sharing what we are up to in the next few years and where you would see Testsigma. So we are actually coming up with a lot of feature, and a few of the recent feature, if you would see that we have support for desktop automation as well. And also, since I spoke about the modern day application, there are a lot of challenges in the current in the current automation setup that we have. So we try to address all of these in next coming year, and hopefully this works well. And I would love to see all of you, all the participants in the community, and I look forward to your contribution in the community.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was insightful. So I think there are no questions on board right now. Maybe
Great.
it's time to adios.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it was a really nice session, Isaac and team, for having us with this particular session. I really appreciate it. Bye.
Thanks for participating with us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, guys.